Hi, my name is Rachel and you're watching the Rachelistic channel. Welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to talk about something a little bit more fun and something that brings a lot of joy to people's lives. And so today we're talking about special interests. In my opinion, it's the best part about being autistic. If you've never heard of a special interest before, or you're not really sure what it means or what it looks like, then this video is for you because I'll be covering all of that. And I'll be talking about some of the special interests that I've had over the years. So that should be interesting. So yeah, without further ado, special interests. So what is the definition of a special interest? Well, I couldn't really find a definition of a special interest, or at least anything that I thought was a good definition. So I just came up with my own. And so a special interest is a topic that an autistic person is intensely focused on and experiences a lot of joy and pleasure from engaging in that topic. So special interests are a part of the diagnostic criteria for autism. In the DSM-5, it's categorized as a highly restricted or fixated interest that's abnormal in intensity or focus. So yeah, basically just something that, an autistic person is like very focused on, just intensely focused on, I guess. So that criteria is in the second half of the DSM-5 criteria for autism. And I actually made a video about the diagnostic criteria for autism. And so if you're interested, then I will just have it up here so that you can check it out if you want to, either right now or after this video. Anyways, that's kind of just what a special interest is. It's an interest that an autistic person has that it's more intense, I guess. It's more involved or more focused than just like a regular hobby or just a regular interest. That's why it's called a special interest, because it's more special, I guess, than just a regular interest. So there are some misconceptions about special interests, and some that I've had or some that I've heard from people who aren't autistic or don't know a lot about autism. And so I thought I would just talk about them and say why they're misconceptions and what the actual thing is. So yeah. So the first one is that special interests are always super like specific and narrow, and the interest is always something that's like abnormal. Basically like it's always going to be something like bottle caps or like gears and clocks, something that's really specific and like not an interest that people typically have. But that is not true. So special interests can be very narrow like that and very specific, but they can also be really broad and general. It can be a general topic like cars or animals, or it can be like a really specific topic like tiny light bulbs or like American pennies from the 1900s. It varies, and it can be broad, it can be specific, but it can be anything. It doesn't always have to be super specific. Yeah, another misconception that I've had is that I've kind of had both, I guess, but either you can only have one special interest like in your whole life, or you can only have one special interest at a time. And both of those are not true either. So you can have more than one special interest in your life, and you can have more than one special interest at a time, which I learned recently. I know that for me, my special interests definitely change a lot, and sometimes they kind of like cycle and go through periods where they're my special interest and then something else, and then it's back to that thing. Or sometimes they just change and I just have this special interest for a little bit and then it goes away and it never comes back. But yeah, it can be like that, or you can have one for your whole life, or you can have many and you can have many at the same time. Yeah, it doesn't always have to be just one thing. It's kind of a silly misconception because, like, just like how a neurotypical person can have more than one hobby, like, autistic people can have more than one special interest. So it's kind of silly to think that you can only have one when everyone else can have like as many hobbies as they want. So, yeah. The final misconception is that special interests are distracting, they encourage avoidance, and they discourage social interactions. So, this is kind of a big one, but I'll break it up, don't worry. Some people think that special interests distract autistic people from like school or work or like other important things that they have to do, like hygiene, cleaning, eating, and so they think that it's bad because of that. But special interests are not inherently distracting. Yes, an autistic person can hyper focus on their special interest and forget to do the things that they are supposed to be doing, but that doesn't mean that special interests in and of themselves are distracting. Actually, they can help autistic people pay attention more to things and, be more focused on something, especially if it's incorporated into the thing they're doing. So, for example, like if a special interest is incorporated into like a child's learning at school, then they actually do better in school. Like they do better with paying attention and getting their assignments done and like focusing on the work because they're actually interested in it now because their special interest is involved, which to me seems like a no-brainer, but I think that's probably just because I'm autistic. So of course that would make sense to me. Also, some autistic adults have been able to turn their special interest into their career. And so obviously, if your special interest is your career, I don't think that it is distracting you from work. If anything, you may be a little bit too focused on your work at that point. Anyways, special interests are not necessarily like distracting, and they can actually help with focusing on things better. So, yeah. Another thing is that some people also think that special interests encourage autistic people to avoid their problems by just like, focusing on on your special interests instead of focusing on your problems and trying to do something about it. Again, that's not necessarily true. Of course, autistic people can just, focus on their special interests and ignore everything and ignore their problems, but more often than not, that's not really what's happening. Most likely, autistic people will engage in their special interests to help kind of like ease their negative emotions or their stress or anxiety or something so that they can be more calm and better deal with whatever their problems are once they are calm. I guess from like an outside point of view, it can look like we're just avoiding our problems because we're doing something that we like when we're stressed out or something, but it's just to help like calm down so that you can better deal with those emotions and do something about it. I know that for me, like if I'm feeling upset or I'm feeling stressed about something, like it definitely helps to do something that I enjoy, like playing Sims, for example. Like if I can like sit and play Sims and then I start to feel better and then I can start thinking a little bit more rationally about whatever is upsetting me instead of just trying to do something as soon as I'm feeling upset because I'm not gonna be able to do anything at that point. So yeah. But yeah, social interests can definitely help with dealing with your problems, and it's not always used for avoiding your problems. And so finally, special interests don't discourage social interactions. Well, not necessarily. again. So you might be thinking, I've been talking about like hyper focus a little bit. So you might be thinking, like, how can a special interest encourage social interactions if autistic people are like hyper focusing on it and like forgetting to do things like cleaning and eating or whatever? Like, how can that encourage social interactions? Well, special interests can actually be really helpful for social interactions. Autistic people can join like clubs or like online communities, programs, I don't know, like about their special interests. And, in those things, they can talk to people and they can meet people and people who have the same interests as them. It can be a really great way for making friends, actually, especially since a lot of autistic people have troubles with making friends. Like, special interests can be like a great help for making friends because it can give you something to talk about and something that you already know that you have in common with another person, especially like, in a club or like online community type of thing. Also, many times when autistic people are talking about their special interests, they become very like animated and like interested and engaged in, the situation or the conversation. So that is another aspect in how and how special interests can help with social interactions. So overall, I think that special interests are more helpful than anything else for autistic people. They help with regulating emotions and they can help with school and work and they can help with interactions. They can help with a lot of things. So that's why special interests are the best thing about being autistic, in my opinion, because they're just great. So I kind of touched on this a little bit, but what do special interests look like? What does it look like when someone has a special interest? What are the kind of things that they do? How do you know that like something is your special interest if you're not really sure what that might look like for you? Well, as I said before, special interests, they can be broad or they can be narrow. So, it can be a topic like flowers, I don't know, or it can be something that's super narrow and specific, like bottle caps, I said before. They can also fluctuate, so or like change, or they can be the same thing for a long time, and you can have more than one at the same time. So, like I said, a special interest, it can be an object, it can be a concept, it can be a person, a place, it can be literally anything. I mean, it's an interest. You can be interested in anything. So, a special interest can be anything, literally anything. Yeah, so what does it really look like? So, it can look like collecting things. So, maybe like having like collectibles or like a collection of something can be your special interest, or it can be like collecting like knowledge. I think I heard someone say this before, but like it can also like collecting knowledge about a certain subject, or maybe collecting books about something, or collecting pictures, or collecting like merchandise, or like just anything associated with what your special interest is. Like collecting is like one way that a special interest can look. It can also look like watching or listening to something like repeatedly, or like binge watching things that have to do with your special interests, or watching the same thing over and over again. It can look like constantly talking about it or constantly thinking about your special interest. Like it's the only thing that you want to talk about, or you just, it's always on your mind, you're always thinking about it. Or it can look like info dumping, which is just like talking about your special interest, like all at once, like to somebody. Yeah, just dumping a lot of information about your special interest on somebody. Or it can also look like just spending a lot of time engaging in your special interests and like hyper focusing on it. So, like spending hours and hours and hours on it and not even realizing the time go by. So, yeah, special interests can look like any of those things or all of those things or a combination of some of those things. It honestly depends on the person because that's kind of how it is with autism. Anything with autism, it depends on the person. So a special interest, it can depend on the person and how it looks like for you. It might look different for me. So this is my favorite part of the video that's coming up now. I'm going to talk about some of my special interests that I've had and I do have, and just kind of talk a little bit about like how I like to engage with them, just to kind of help you understand better what a special interest can look like, and maybe it can help you find out what your special interest is if maybe you are not sure. So let's get into it. So I have quite an extensive list here right now, so I'm trying not to make this video too long. So I'm not going to go in like too much detail. I'll try not to go into too much detail about these special interests that I've had, but yeah, I'll try my best. Okay. So the first one that I thought of was princesses, which is it's so this is a really good example of like special interests being like they can be really broad, because my special interest of like princesses is very broad. It's like not any princess or like just Disney princesses specifically. It's like just the general idea of princesses. And so an example I can share is like when I was in elementary school, my school had this book about princesses. I don't honestly, I don't fully remember what that book was about. I think it was just like things that princesses like wear or like what they do and stuff like that. The only thing I really remember from the book is that it said that like princesses don't eat with their like elbows on the table. Like you have like you're not supposed to rest your elbows on the table because that's not what royalty does. I guess it's not like good table manners. But anyways, I'm already getting too into this. Yeah, I read that book so many times because I just love princesses. So I would read that book like over and over and over again. I read it like so many times. I don't even know how many times I read that book, but I read it a lot. Another example from for this is like my favorite book of all time is A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. And even so, the main character in the book, Sarah, like she's not a princess. Like nobody in that book is an actual princess, but it's like, but like she pretends to be a princess. And the first time I read that book, it got me into like pretending that I was a princess also. So that's kind of, I don't know, a little example of how princesses was my special interest. And I also read that book multiple times as well. So yeah. Another special interest I've had is dogs. I mean, I love dogs. Again, I used to read a lot of books about dogs when I was little. I remember at one point, every time I went to the library, I made it like a routine, I guess, to like take out one book about dogs every single time we went to the library because I love dogs. I still love dogs. I just love getting anything that was like dog associated. So like I love getting like a calendar. I had like dog calendars. I had at least 2 dog calendars in my life. I love getting like notebooks or like stickers or like anything with like a dog on it, stuffed animals. I was a dog. I loved it. Just love dogs. I love looking at pictures of dogs on the internet. Like, yeah, and researching about dogs and like what type of dog I would want to get when I'm older. And yeah, unfortunately, I still never had a dog in my life, but I am hoping to get one soon in the next year or so, hopefully, if I have the space for it. But yeah, I love dogs. So the next 2 special interests I'm going to talk about are kind of related. So Build-A-Bear was a big special interest that I had when I was a kid, and American Girl dolls was also one that I had when I was a little bit older. But yeah, it was kind of around the same time. But yeah, The thing that I realized about Build-A-Bear and American Girl dolls that I think really got me and why it became my special interest was like the idea of like collecting things for your bear or your doll. So like you could get like different outfits or like little beds or like closets and shoes and other like accessory things for your bear or your doll or whatever. And so I think I like what really drew me to it because I really liked like looking on the websites or at the store and like looking at all of the things that you could get and like I don't know, like making like wish lists of stuff that I could get that I would never get. But I don't know. I just like the idea of like getting the stuff and like even if I did get the stuff, like I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't have ever really like played with it that much, but just like set it up and like maybe like change the outfits every now and then. But like yeah, I just really wanted it just to like set it up and just to like have it, which is a very autistic thing that I now realize that. But yeah, another special interest that I have is Barbie. It's not really the Barbie dolls. It's more like Barbie, like as like the animated thing show, I guess, of Barbie. Yeah, this is a special interest that I had like when I was like graduating high school and going to university, and it kind of came back again now. But yeah, I really like watching like Barbie vlogs on YouTube specifically. And yeah, I recently like hyper focused on it and spent like I don't know how many hours watching Barbie vlogs on YouTube. I went from the beginning and just was watching them. And it's really bad too because like the special interest isn't bad, but what's bad about Barbie vlogs is that they're like 2 minutes long, like 2 to 3 minutes. And so you can watch like you could easily watch like 10 and that's like 20 minutes gone right there. So I don't know how many I watched, but I watched a lot and it was like hours and I was like, okay, I need to do something else because this is not what I was planning to do with my day, but I just got hooked. So yeah. Right. So another special interest that I've had, because I did say before that special interests can be people. And so when I was in school and like elementary school, middle school, whatever, when I had a crush on a boy, he would very easily become my special interest. And so, yeah, that's another way that special interest can be a thing. I don't like talking about it because it makes me feel cringy inside. But yeah, one of the ways that like that would look is that like if, for example, say I had their number and I could text them or message them. I would like text them every single day with a random question because like I just wanted to like learn everything about them because they're my special interest. And so I would do that and yeah, great. Also, celebrity can be a special interest. Like Jaden Smith was my special interest also when I was like 11, whatever, 11 or 12, whenever Karate Kid came out. And yeah, I would watch a bunch of videos on YouTube about him and random interviews and stuff that he did at the time. I think the only reason he was my special interest though is because he had a lot of similar features to a boy that I had a crush on at the time. So I think it was more about the boy and less about Jaden Smith, but yeah. Another special interest I've had is figure skating, which I have talked about before. But basically, you know, I would do a lot of, I guess, not necessarily research, but just like watching a lot of figure skating videos on YouTube and like looking at figure skating stuff on like Pinterest or on websites and stuff like that. So yeah, and also watching the figure skating on the Olympics at the time, which is this Winter Olympics coming up now? I think it might have already started, and now it's making me want to watch figure skating on the Olympics again. So I might not figure out how to. I need to figure out how to do that to where I can watch it. But let's stay on topic. Autism is also another special interest I've had. or I have, I guess, which I think is pretty obvious considering I have this whole YouTube channel that's about autism and neurodiversity and ADHD. And neurodiversity is kind of a big special interest of mine at the moment. So yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. Another special interest I've had is like writing. So like writing stories and books, trying to write books. Yeah, that kind of looked like me just always coming up with different stories and like characters and just always writing books. And also kind of related to this is like notebooks. Like I realized when I was preparing for this video that like I have collected like over my life like so many notebooks. Like I just love getting notebooks and like I barely use them. I have a bunch of like half written in notebooks still. But yeah, I guess notebooks is kind of like a collectible item thing. It's kind of a special interest. So another one is hair. So like natural hair. I can spend a lot of time just like researching things for natural hair or like my hair type. Yeah, one of the things I loved watching on YouTube about natural hair is like wash day videos or like washing like your hair. Yeah, I've done this before. I literally like watched different like wash day videos for hours and I was just like, I don't know why I like it, but I just like watching it. It's I don't know, I just like it. I just like those videos. I don't know. And then my last special interest I'm gonna talk about for today is foster care and adoption. So this one has been an interest of mine for like as long as I can remember. I've always been interested in like adoption and like foster care. I've done a lot of research about it over my life and I like watching like YouTube families that do foster care and adoption and stuff. Just doing a lot of research and sometimes I look at websites like adoption websites and like I don't know, just read information that I've read like millions of times before. But yeah. So those are some of the special interests that I've had over the years and that I do have currently. It's kind of long. I hope it's not too long. I always feel like when I'm preparing for these videos, I'm like, it's not going to be that long. And then I edit it and it's like longer than I thought. And I'm like, but yeah, I hope it's not too long. I hope that this helped you to understand more about special interests and maybe it helped you to learn about or maybe figure out what your special interests are if you weren't sure. So that's basically it for this video. If you liked it, if you learned something new, then please give it a thumbs up so that more people can see it and learn new things as well. If you have any questions or anything that you would like to add about special interests or you want to talk about your special interest, if you want to info dump about your special interest, then comment it in the comments because that would be really cool actually to see what your special interests are. So yeah, comment it down below. And finally, if you like my videos, if you like watching my videos, then please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know when I post next. So yeah, as always, stay ritualistic or whatever your name is, istic. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.